Why, hello,
Join.
everybody's able to join us for the fourth episode of Facecrime, a study in difficult personalities. And I actually came across one and he decided to join us today. His name is Robby Gaskins, and some of you may know him from his LinkedIn profile, which gets more and more, let's say, brave each day. Um, and and also you may know him from his own podcast. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that podcast, just real quick?
Yeah, I am right there. We pretty much launched, I think, the same week almost, or the same month here. It's a pretty symbiotic ecosystem. I'm doing my fourth episode next week. It's called Robby's Rants and Reviews. It's quickly turning into a guest host show, though, where I can't rant and review for a whole hour. We had Adam Garlinger on yesterday, who was
Yeah.
your last one. So basically, yeah, I'm kind of riding off your coattails. I was actually just requested Nick Sternberg also to come on here. I was chatting with him this morning. So basically, I'm doing a back and forth copycat of you as well here, and I'm gonna use all of your guests as my lead list going off from here of who I need to call next.
Nick's really good at providing like seed lists because he also collects very difficult people, and I love it. So I asked Robby here to join us today, and it should be a trip. I asked him for a brief couple sentence, I guess, bio, and he says, conservative Californian loudmouth salesman turned loudmouth wannabe podcast host in the vein of Billy Mays and Tommy Callahan. And of course, if people of a certain age for sure will know who Billy Mays is. And I'll tell you, Robby, when I caught a couple of your podcasts, especially yesterday, I said to myself, he's supposed to be a sportscaster. I mean, that's what you're supposed to be. But I like the loudmouth salesman angle as well. So, welcome to the show. And I do want to a shout out to all here, Robby. I know you're going to be maybe envious. Hear me out. I have 8 subscribers.
I think I was number 6.
So, and I try to leverage, all of you difficult people by saying things like, hey, you should come on the show because, 4 or 5 people are, desperate for content, and really you're kind of letting down the community if you don't come on my show. So there's a little bit of guilt in there, a little bit of, flattery, right? So, but eventually I reel people in. And to what you were mentioning about Nick, so I found Nick and I said, because I've been thinking about it for a while, I'll start this stupid thing. And then I thought, okay, well, what's my angle? And it always came down to like, I just like meeting and talking to people and exploring their brains. And then I thought, okay, well, that's not really an angle, I suppose. And then I said, well, who do I like to talk to? And it turns out I like to talk to people who are a pain in the ass like me. So, yeah, great to have you here. Appreciate it for sure.
No, and I appreciate this this being my first invite to a podcast here. And yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Everyone's so worried about appeasing one certain niche audience. Just like I called mine on the first episode, it's a show about nothing. I don't have enough. I don't have enough of a following or I guess hard skills or knowledge on anything intelligible enough to blabber on to the LinkedIn crowd about, the LinkedIn crowd, they're a little bit more intelligent than the Facebook crowd. They're usually employed, which is the only reason they made a LinkedIn, or they're not employed and they really want a job, which is also why they made a LinkedIn. Totally different from the Facebook crowd. So I'm with you loud and clear, man. Mine's a show about nothing. I just want, difficult creatives, salespeople, much as yourself, the more artistic types. See, with my generation, growing up in the Hayward, Oakland area, and knowing a lot of the hippie types from Berkeley, everyone claims to be an artist. So anybody, under 35 anymore that claims to be an artist, I can't even take them seriously or listen to them at all anymore, which is why you're kind of also seeing the trend with the age group I'm having on my show, which seem to be about a decade or two my senior. So yeah, we're trending in the same way here, which I think is getting more popular from when I even post mine on LinkedIn, and then LinkedIn will say, here's some similar shows. It's nothing at all. It's like, somebody in Indonesia saying, here's a class on machine learning. And I'm like, this didn't have anything to do with my show at all. But
Right.
of course, again, you go on, I go into the LinkedIn search engine and I'll search any niche weird topic or band or whatever, just to see if any other weirdo on LinkedIn at large searches or shares the same things as me. And it's few and far between. So yeah, it's it's a new emerging market. That's why I'm going to have a slew of people myself with no real intricate mean or method.
Well, and plus, the I think the approach is proper, right? Because there are a couple things going on here. One, at least like I'm not an extremely kind of structured person, and while I'm not patient, I like to think I'm kind of aware of the value in letting things develop organically, right? So I need to get better at doing this, and you know Horsads like you need to cut their teeth, kind of being interviewed, right? And so, but at the same time, it's interesting. Speaking of Nick Sternberg, so um, yeah, watch this. Ready?
All right.
No. Okay. So I just, so, so Nick Sternberg wrote me this morning, and it was interesting. He said, something about, the as cringe as LinkedIn is, it's turning kind of into this, at least in recent kind of, I want to say, months, turning into like networking, perhaps not in the way that it was intended, right? But I'm like, finally, I would say in the last 2 months, I've probably I've talked to more people in the last 2 months that are, I mean, obviously like-minded in some respects, but also, professionally kind of like, you know what, um, I'm, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing the grind. I'm doing my own thing, and I'm gonna have my own voice, damn it, type of thing. And so I think there is some weird, um, there's some weird coalescing going on there. I'm not sure what that is, but anyway, so professional stuff is boring, but I think this is fun, right? It's fun to talk to other people and kind of pick their brains. So, um, I asked you for maybe a couple topics that you would like to go into, but I'm going to start off with asking you, so when did you get the sense that you were a difficult personality? Like, was it early in life? Was it recently? Was it, I mean,
It has always been since a youth, one of the original feelings I felt of being, not in line with everyone. And again, this comes from a very jaded view from where I come from in California, in the East Bay area. But like, I would walk into a mall or a supermarket, and I would always think, if anything bad happened, everyone else will most likely have a collaborative sense with each other than me. Call that what you will, the instinct, the worry to always be, have your own back and be able to get out of a bad situation yourself, or just call it anxiety and paranoia. But I've always had those feelings where I walk into a large building, everyone has a more of a commonality with each other than me. Again, race, creed, status be damned. It just, in general, I feel like everyone has more of the similar brain lengths and would be on the same page with more things. So as a child, I definitely always knew I was a difficult personality. Growing up where I grew up, I'm one of the few people that had the hobbies and interests that I had. Going into, as I kind of coined the last 3 and 8 years, the COVID years and then the Trump years, as soon as really the Trump years come. So I come from Hayward. It is known as the heart of the Bay. We're smack dab in between Oakland, San Jose, and San Mateo. We're ground zero for everybody's nonsense, everybody's bullshit, the politics, the gangbanging, the influx of, community clashes. All of that comes right there to the center head. It was, I would dare say, one of the least known or least famous cities of the Bay Area until the last 5 or 10 years, when it just became the last stretch and frontier that everybody was using strategically to then get to either the valley or the peninsula, which are respectively east and west. As the Trump years hit, and all the children that I watched either have, be difficult personalities themselves, or just, be awful people, or be people that had a great life, whatever it so be, all start speaking and rewriting history as if the Bay Area was this terrible place and this tyrannical hellhole where they were unable to flourish. And again, these are people, this is the Bay Area here where everybody, is running some kind of grift, some kind of scam. Everybody's on WIC, everybody's on something to make ends meet. Or, they're the new elite class that has moved in over the last 5 years, over the COVID years. Because again, there's the Trump years and then the COVID years. The COVID years take place within the Trump years. We're still in the Trump years. Once all of those people that I grew up with and, I shared the reality of the 90s with, started rewriting history as if, again, this was some terrible, terrible life they had led because Trump is now a person who speaks on TV. That's all it took. This was before Trump was president. I lived in Oakland at the time. As soon as Trump came down the elevator, there was mobs of angry people in the nice part of Oakland, Grand Avenue, downtown, screaming on microphones about how this is speakerphones, megaphones, that this is so wrong. We've been so wrong because Trump said, I'm going to go for president. He hadn't even done anything yet. And this is when I really witnessed the full retard degradation and breakdown of my generation across the Hayward, Oakland area. There's one city in between my hometown and Oakland where I lived there. So it's it's an easy span there. My parents are from the South Bay, which a little bit more Fremont, Tri-City area. So I have a good span of all the, the fuckery going on that side of the bay there. When we have a little bit extra money, we take the BART train over to San Francisco, Berkeley. So, I'm well versed in how it works. It was then that I saw all of these same people trying to rewrite history that I noticed that I was even much more of a difficult personality. It kind of came to a head over the last few years here as I've made my rise and claim to fame in the rideshare tech space and have gotten to at least an accolade and comfortable enough part of life here to where, we purchased a home. I can kind of be a little bit more vocal. I don't have to worry about being out on the streets or making a car payment or anything. So I can finally sit down, hunker down, be a little bit more vocal about this, work on some hard skills, and then kind of, bring this to light. In the last few months, where I, even more so, again, the new development of the difficult personality, in the last few months, just the utter and complete breakdown of society. Again, more jaded view here in California. It's pretty much over here, the laws that are coming into place now, the homelessness, they don't even go to jail if you follow any of the Berkeley or San Francisco prosecutors and the district attorneys. No one goes to jail. It's over. The criminals run the streets flagrantly. So it was when I saw that I said, screw it, what am I going to even do? As you had kind of commented on my second episode, why do you even live in California? First of all, I guess I'm just too lazy to leave. All my family's here, and we got a good rate on a house. The missus doesn't want to leave and leave her family, so I just got to stay here and fight the communist robots with John Connor and, stay and die on this hill. But as, again, I see, just the full breakdown here, nobody works. I think we're going into 3 years now of the rent moratorium. You can basically assume anybody that, anybody that is, I hate to say sound so classist, anybody that's lower income, that's lived in the same place the last 4 years, has most likely not been paying rent because they have not had to. Yeah. You can look around society and you just, lost all respect for your common man. And this is why it's, reached the newest head of being a difficult personality, where I say the terribly appalling things that I say on the internet. And quite frankly, no one really has too much of the gall to challenge me once they see where I come from and what I'm talking about, because I come from ground zero of their fuckery. So they can't lie to me as if I'm some, forgive me, Midwesterner who has not seen their coastal bullshit.
Well, I'll tell you, for sure, you have a front row seat, and that's, I guess that's interesting. So so it's good to have a man, I suppose, on the inside, although, you might want to wear a flak jacket or something like that. But, we still, it's like the wildfires in California and Canada. They still,
Wowie.
we still see it, like see the, if we don't get the smoke and the particulates, we still see like, oh, something's going on over there. Um, and we do see a great deal of, as you perfectly put it, the fuckery. And part of that is that you have the tail wagging the dog, right? So, for instance, every time I go out to do my lawn, and yes, we do our lawns out here in the Midwest occasionally, and I need a new gas can, and I get this freaking great, say, I don't know, 6 gallon, 5 gallon gas can. And I'm like, okay, well, this is great. I bring it home and it's got this new fangled spout that is mandated in California, and the fucking thing doesn't work. It's intended to save you from spillage, but what it does is turns it into it's a complete. I've spilled more in the last year with
You have to
this
like
gas.
turn it sideways. I believe you have to jam it in and then turn it sideways or something like
Yeah, it's
that.
like what
Yeah.
on what planet are you like living that makes sense. So we still do get to live with the tail wagging the dog, and there's a great deal of, resentment anyway. And where I'm from in particular in Wisconsin, we're Packer fans, most of us. And people ask me, well, what happened with Aaron Rodgers? And no offense to, I have a portion of my clan that lives in San Diego. So like, you know, but they'll say what happened with Aaron Rodgers. I said, well, he went full California. Never go full California, right? Especially especially when your environment is like Green Bay, Wisconsin, right? So
Mhm.
I think that's part of that thing. So um as you watch this sort of and it's interesting because you're there and totally understand the totally understand the motivations. I mean, if the wife is, not moving, you're not going anywhere. So, and if your family's there, you're going to die there, which is, it's the same thing here for us in, we're outside of Milwaukee. But we have, plenty of our own fuckery. It's just, it's a different, I think we're slow on the take. And, Wisconsin is really can be best described as like, it is for sure a purple state, right? So we've got two big cities that determine every election, and unfortunately, one of them is, Dane County, where the University of Wisconsin-Madison is, and also our seat of government is there. So like, that's as blue as it can get anyway, right? Because well, there's a lot of feeding at the trough going on, and a lot of bubble living going on. People who just
Of
don't
course.
they just don't realize what common man, I guess, is going through. So, I don't think California is alone in that. I think the size of California is the problem because when you guys, what is it? When you get a cold, the rest of the nation sneezes or something. So, um, so there's that. And then, so the fall of California, I mean, really, I spent some time, San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco, in the 90s. And, yeah, was it a curious place? Yeah, it was, but it was your normal kind of fruits and nuts sort of stuff, right? It wasn't, I certainly didn't feel, except for in certain parts of San Francisco, I didn't feel like I was in danger. Certainly didn't have to avoid, feces and such. So, and there weren't hypodermic needles all over the place as far as I knew, right? And I wasn't exactly in the greatest um, locations. So, you know, but I mean, California is easily the most beautiful state in the union, which is really unfortunate that we're seeing this happen in California and the birthplace, or at least the where we got Reagan from, which is just stunning. Like how? So my question, this is let me just go straight to conspiracy 101. So you have these great cities like, well, once great cities, and hopefully they'll return, like San Francisco, which, by the way, I just was enthralled with San Francisco. LA, not so much, um, but San Diego, I really, really liked. So it occurred to me, I'm like, this has got to be purposeful. Your governor has to be doing this on purpose to absolutely destroy California. I mean, to really go, it seems like purposeful. So then I think to myself, well, why is it purposeful? And then I end up on this conspiracy thing where I'm like, okay, well, maybe they're plunging these cities and making them unlivable so that someone can sweep in and or swoop in and purchase all of the real estate. I don't know, and then revive it. I mean, am I crazy or like is that crazy?
No, so that's exactly what happened through COVID already. Foreign investors came in. COVID happened, and see, it's just how I feel like it's the same with the car market. It was the real estate and the car market did the same thing with COVID. They dipped initially with COVID, then they went through the roof. A new car all of a sudden cost 25%, 20% less because, oh no, what are we going to do? There's the recession coming. Then it was, oh my God, no, this is going to lead to supply chain issues. Charge more for everything, charge more for everything. So what happened was the pandemic came, all the foreign investors that had planned this pandemic with the powers that be over with the CCP and everybody else, they all hopped in, swooped in, bought everything in the Bay Area. I personally, and anyone that's from here, I come from a Mexican town that is now a Chinese town. It became a Chinese town during COVID. Everything plunged into chaos right there during COVID. The Chinese bought everything. Maybe I'll generalize a little bit. Or the Orientals bought everything. I don't use the Asians. That can mean Russian. That can mean Indian. You know, it's actually more racist to use a term like Asian when generalizing. Yeah, Orientals came, took up really where it was all Hispanic areas there. It's them. I often am shocked when I drive through my old town because it's Hispanic gangbanger town. There'll be Asian women with Gucci purses and Teslas. Then they'll pull into their house with the black metal spiked gate that's on that's on the system, and it's already open by the time and it's closing by the time. And that's why they've moved in. They've moved in. There are bars in the windows. Beautiful cities. Hayward is a coastal city as well, where I come from. Again, heart of the Bay. Our motto is no room for racism. So you can imagine how nobody cares about throwing away anybody's community. Hayward most used to be actually a Portuguese community. Go up to the old Portuguese memorial and everything. Nobody's Portuguese over there anymore. Not like I would know, but yeah, they're not. So no, it's not a conspiracy at all. It's just that the investors come from places where it's already so much worse than they can even think of making this. They don't mind or care. They're now turning this whole 15-minute city into Airbnb everything, which, coming as a capitalist myself, Airbnb is the downfall of a community. I don't care what a great investor you are. You got a bunch of properties in Airbnb out, and you're a big old success. Call me a hater. You're a terrible person. There is a house that will never be owned by anyone else. No family will ever gain roots in there. Everyone in that neighborhood will always have to see a new punk ass group of youngsters or weirdos or people getting married or old people that are, on their third honeymoon and getting drunk all night. It's always some fuckery. I remember when we moved to this city, we moved in a small city in Sacramento County. A 16-year-old was shot and killed in an Airbnb on Halloween 2 years ago when we first moved up here. So the whole Airbnb culture of foreign investors buying the property, they're not even here, so they don't care at all. So this isn't any kind of crazy speculation at all you're making. This is exactly what's happened. It's that either they come from such a bad place, they don't care how bad it's going to get until it just goes back around. That mixed with the fact that even if they've taken a slight hit on equity, the fact that the rates are what they are now versus what they were then, nobody really cares that much. The plan is still into effect. Destroy America, take everything from the Westerners, make this ground zero for it's the Tower of Babel. No, 17 different languages spoken on the same block. Nobody's looking out for anybody else's house. Oh, did that guy break into your house and was looking into your car? I wouldn't know because I don't know what your friends and family look like because there's no community because breakdown of utter society. But I come from a third world desert, so I don't care how bad this is. Again, long rant, a little bit, maybe a little bit off color there, but you called it perfectly. It's just that the standard of people with the embezzled money they spend don't care to live in the squalor they create.
Yeah, right. And that's incredibly sad. So when you're you're quite a bit younger, I think, than I am. But
33.
yeah, so I got you by 20 years. So in uh in the wake of 9/11, um I of course it was, horrible, and I was on my way driving down to, nobody cares, but I was driving on to work and heard it on the talk radio, pulled over, went into a hotel to watch the news on the, this is, I mean, I had a Nextel phone of all things, right? So, um, but the thing that, noodling over this years and years and years and years of noodling over it, at some point I said, the genius, the sheer genius of, and I mean this in a really dastardly, horrible way, is the sheer genius of the interloper, right? So the folks who did that to us is they essentially used our own infrastructure, I mean, literally, and our own openness to fly it into the building, right? So, like, the if the buildings are culture, right? People are, and the plane, the plane would be like due process, or sorry, process or legal, let's call it lawfare, right? So now you've got people who are using these very established um, institutions and framework to essentially destroy it. I mean, it's a very bizarre thing, and I talked to sorry, now my audio is going to be all weird. So, um, in talking with other people about this, it used to be, and this is, the enemy. So let's just presume that 9/11 was what it was built to be. So you say of these external actors, and I'm fine with presuming that. I just at this point, I don't know what to believe about anything, to be honest with you.
I'll go into my I use a 9/11 argument type framework when I'm arguing with the left. So no, I totally hear you. I'll just to kind of go back on that. When I'm arguing with anybody that really disagrees with me, on anything else, regardless, I'll take the kind of same approach. Like, I'm arguing with the leftists. They say George Bush did 9/11. I'll say, sure, George Bush did 9/11. Who was happy that this happened? Who celebrated? Who mocked us? That's why I go into that whole diatribe there. George Bush did it. George Bush flew it. He had a remote control. He flew it into the building himself. But who was happy and who mocked us afterward? So no, I hear you. But back to you. I kind of
Yeah,
off
so
topic there.
no, it's actually kind of spot on. So with regard to um, you know, talking for instance, well, it used to be that, you had this republic and you had, we were given the Bears and the Packers, and that they at least the Bears and the Packers kind of played, they agreed to the terms of they agreed to the rules of the game, right? So there was an overlap. Let's say it was 70% that each side, right, was committed to 70% they'd be in agreement with one another, right?
On this set
And
of rules.
yeah, and not only on the rules, but perhaps even on the, you know, I mean, marriage would be good, man and woman. Like, I mean, they all agreed up until what, 5 minutes ago. So,
Overall
like,
morality.
yeah. So, or at least that's what we were given to understand, right? The problem now, um, is that you have one group who, um, still, let's say, is still behind the times because we're still romantic about our Constitution and our history, and the importance of law and justice, and yes, mercy, that's fine, and all that. But you have a group of folks on the other hand who, um, they hate they hate this country, and so it's very difficult to have a republic like that because you say, well, we should work hand in hand across the aisle to make things better, a more perfect union, right? But the person you're reaching your hand out to, right, is like, but I don't want this union at all. Like, I just don't want it. We need to destroy this marriage. We need
Destroy
to,
your union and accept my union, even though I left where my union was created because of how bad it was.
right. And so I think a lot of that is what we're seeing now, and it's very sad. It's very sad. So okay, so y- are you bullish on the, let's say, 10 years from now with regard to the Republic?
Not in California, really, but it's just like as we were saying, I'm just a difficult personality, so I'm not just going to let them steamroll me and take it. The only other hope I have is that, as I remember when I was a kid, like I had this shirt and it had George Bush on it, and he had like demon eyes and blood dripping from it. I got from like Rasputin's music. I don't know if you guys have those over there. It's our it's CD store we used to have over here. It's Rasputin, the Russian old guy. It's he's the logo. Um, I was so brainwashed by not even understanding who the fuck was. I didn't know what a Republican or a Democrat was even until like halfway through Obama when I was in my early 20s. I really didn't care. All my friends made the jokes, I'm just voting for Obama because he's black, whether my friends were black or white, or whatever they were. Everyone was just making those jokes. Again, I have really not a lot of hope for California in the next 10 years, other than the reverse coin of what I was saying about not understanding the politics. Hopefully, if I grow up with my class of weird leftists that are, as brainwashed as they are, if their kids are like any generation of children in the past who are rebellious against their parents and want to do the other thing to piss off mom and dad, hopefully, fingers crossed, they'll all want to be a little bit more conservative and be like, ew, why would I do that, mom and dad? That's what losers do. Oh, why would I want to, change my sex and dye my hair blue and do all this weird shit? That's what losers do. I want to carve out my own way in life and do something positive. And, I had to just that, say all these cheesy lines that all the adults like yourself used to say, and idle hands are the devil's playthings and all this, that, and the other thing. And now they hand them a goddamn tablet and tell them to watch these weird YouTube channels with the transgender people, telling them what to do. But for California, the only thing really that makes it not a total freak society here is the cost of living. Now, LA is like a whole other different demon. They have Skid Row and everything, and it costs even more to live in LA. So I don't know how to get away with that. Same with San Francisco, costs way more than where I live, and it's kind of worse. So, here in California, it's a real, power pull. As long as the Newsom Pelosi power structure complex is in place, I doubt things would get much better. We are a state full of people who claim to hate white people and then would not vote for Larry Elder, a black man, over Gavin Newsom, who, if you had to, if Gavin Newsom didn't exist and you had to say Chat GPT AI system, make me a white scumbag politician Democrat who looks like every evil grinning talking head from a movie, he would look like Gavin Newsom.
Or Trudeau, or Trudeau.
Or Trudeau, exactly. Yeah, and Trudeau gets more of a weird grin as we go too, because I didn't realize what an actor he was until the last few years as well. I'm like, oh man, and he's Fidel Castro's son. He's his mom slept with Castro. His dad watched and videotaped it.
Oh,
But
he's a cock.
yeah,
Yeah.
but he's a real scumbag, little real grinning weirdo himself too. They're little small men. They're little skeleton men, little like Mr. Burns, like Voldemort on the back of Quirrell's head on the end of the first Harry Potter, sucking off of power because they cannot create. And the
So
sad thing about California is they just let everybody who looks and pretends to be downtrodden enough, whether you're from another state, county, or country, the weather's so nice here. It's okay. You can stay here and camp out in the park because you won't die of heat or cold. And that's the fucked thing about California.
yeah, I think that's great. I said this is so unchristian of me. This is a couple of years ago, and I'm like, I don't know how many years ago, I'm like, you know what they should do? Because we started having kind of like a homeless encampment, in Milwaukee, which if you know Milwaukee, like it's just like what? Like why would you want to
Snow.
be here? It's fucking cold, right? And and so it's just a bad look. So I said, to one of my partners, I'm like, hey, why don't we have a program where we like buy bus tickets for him and like send him to, I don't know, San Diego or some like one way like bus tickets. A couple days later, he comes to me, he goes, that's a terrible idea, but they're already doing that. So then I found this site where like there's like this civil war of like amongst all the states and big cities and such that are just shipping, like they're just, yeah, you want to win one-way ticket to Phoenix? How's that sound? And they ship them down there and make them Phoenix's problem. And then again, it's very crass and it's terrible. But I think it was during the time when like uh when really kind of the idea of sanctuary cities and all this stuff was really in vogue, right? So there's that. So you talk about so I actually went, and it's funny because I was asking you about the Republic, the United States, and you went with the Republic of California, I take it. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
so but that's what Californians do, right? Texans do as well. So I don't think anyone thinks of like Wisconsin as the Republic of Wisconsin for whatever it's worth. Um but tell me about your interest in sort of like stoicism, and I know that you're kind of interested in that, and just as kind of background, so I'm really kind of given to that anyway because I'm more like a trad Catholic, right? So for me, like I'm like, yeah, well, stoicism, yeah, absolutely, let's have more of it. What is what's your fascination with that, or thoughts on that?
You know, when COVID hit and just the entirety of, again, I saw COVID as being the catalyst for everybody to really take the snowball route downhill in a fast and bad and ugly way, even further than they were over the first couple of Trump years. So I really just saw that, I don't have a lot of friends or anyone really that see eye to eye with my way anymore. Now as COVID kicks in, even less so. A lot of people are taking this for every excuse that they can, whereas, I was more so, hey, unfortunately, your grandpa died from that thing he's been sick for 7 years, not COVID. That's what did it. And, that lost me a lot of friends too, and just not being sympathetic to the whole, oh, my friend's sick about this. And so I just really kind of just sat and said, I better just become my own best friend, better play with myself. And so that's when I started looking into, what I just general bland topics on YouTube. The lone man, the gray man, all that stupid thing, all those stupid buzz terms, the lone man, the gray man, the lone wolf, and this, and it all comes back to just stoicism overall, how a man gets through his day with nothing else, with no one else. And, a man used to have to just mill a field by himself all day and push a rock up a hill, and every other thing that was unrewarding and difficult and hard by themselves, that was physically straining, that, just wasn't fun at all. And they did it by themselves. And not to say that I, having a hard life or anything. I work for little remote tech companies, so I'm not out working any hard field all day, but realizing that now with these lockdowns, which, they locked it down pretty well here in California, forced every restaurant to push their tables outside and do every other stupid thing to make sure the plastic, the glass plate companies all made a lot of money. But that's kind of really what led me to go down the whole rabbit hole of all of the Greek philosophers and everybody else. Again, I'm so terrible at history. Was not one of my strong suits. So it took me for a little bit more of a spin going that route, sitting in my room all day. You work all day, then you sit in your room all night because there's nothing to do. You can't go out. No one wants to go out. If you go out, you're a fucking extremist. If you're at the beach, you're going to get arrested. So really, it was just a better, again, what do you do when you're a man by yourself and you better figure out how to weather the storm? And it all comes back to that. So I just found it fascinating. It's, as I get older, again, I really zoned out and didn't care much for history. Went to Christian school through 5th grade, so I don't think we learned much about any kind of history other than biblical history. And then by 6th grade in junior high, I wasn't paying any attention to anything. So it was over by then. Once I made that transition from Christian school to public school and saw how those children behave, I was like, fuck all. But that's really how it even was introduced to me 3-4 years ago once COVID hit. And, having to see how men used to be before being so jaded by the man of California, which is somebody who codes an app.
Well, right. I mean, look, when I hear, when I was growing up, there were certain things you could depend on, right? So the Marlboro Man was what everybody in California looked like. If he wasn't a Beach Boy, he was the Marlboro Man. Or, John Wayne or something along those, or, a 49er, or, I mean, sort of these rugged individualists who
Men of
had,
the West,
yeah, and
cowboys.
Yeah, right. And had no one to rely on should the, things go sideways. They just died, right? You just died because you broke your leg or whatever. So like that's a really it's 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 a great self-reliance is very liberating, right? That doesn't mean that we don't
Absolutely.
rely on our family, lean on our friends, ask our neighbors to come help us with whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. But there's this, I guess, can do sort of very American thing that is, it was extremely appealing about that sentiment. In addition, at that, if you would ask me what would be one of the last countries to just completely, you know, outside of the US to like fall on its knees, wearing African garb in all of their Euro glory, I would have been like, well, the US will never do that, right? Because being what 49 or 50 at the time, I was still a very naive 49 or 50. I mean, for Christ's sake, I thought JFK was killed by, Lee Harvey Oswald. I mean, I don't know what I was thinking. Um, you know, so things like that were givens. I was still the goodest boy with regard to opinions on that. And then, but I would have said, Australia, those fuckers, they're not going to put up with shit. Those fuckers, they are hell bent and da-da-da-da. And next thing I know, they're rediscovering their roots as prisoners of the empire, as being cast-offs from Great Britain. It was so disheartening. And so, yeah, you lose friends, but you lose some faith in perhaps some of your family, certainly in the institutions that you thought maybe, even though they're governmental, maybe they would have their shit together because, well, this is their mandate for existence. And then I found, and again, absolutely love my faith, but I was so freaking pissed that the Catholic bishops just t- checked out, nothing to say, let their parishes be closed down, let fucking old people die without funeral mass, without the which are important to us. So like
Yes.
extreme unction or the last rites type of thing, without the sacraments of the church. The church it shouldn't surprise me being made up of men, but I was very disheartened with that. So Stoicism, so at the time I was like, what, I'm going to write a book, and this book is going to be about badass priests, because all we've gotten recently, along the lines of like where we look to for leadership, are these just weak need, pardon the expression, pussies.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
but that wasn't always the case. We had Theodore Roosevelt's, right? We had Daniel Boone's. We had, I mean, even if you want to say someone who,
Davy Crockett.
yeah, man, 100%. There were religious men like that. You could even say like Martin Luther King Jr. He knew what was coming. Come on. He wasn't an idiot, right? But he was a man of principle who many, especially in our government, that government that we're supposed to listen to now and love and trust and obey, they sure as fuck thought he was a difficult personality. So, like, I guess I love the stoicism aspect because I try to teach that to not all my kids, but in particular to the boys, because I've said it before, that the in times of peace, people don't like difficult personalities, but in times of crisis, boy, are they desperate for them. They're just desperate for them. So, I think some of the wheat from the chaff, back to your religious sort of thing, right? Some of that, we got to see who's who, like kind of who's who in our lives. And sometimes when we see that, it's like, man, I wish I wouldn't have known that about you. Like I had a different impression, right?
Yeah, you don't ever want to meet your heroes. It goes back to that old saying because yeah, it was everybody, and I guess just myself, all my heroes being bad heroes. I don't ever sports heroes or anything like that, but just old actors and everybody that you thought you could look up to morally because they had fooled me from the actors they play. Yeah, they came out and Spades talking about lockdown. Arnold Schwarzenegger, fuck your freedoms and all this, that, and the other thing. Like, you're from fucking Austria. Your dad's a Nazi. I love you, you Arnold Schwarzenegger. How dare you come to my country with an accent and tell me how to live? And that's just, again, coming from my own here in California, if I can't understand what you're saying about my laws and rules and country, you shouldn't even have an opinion on it. So, I get out of here with all that. But yeah, no, you said it perfectly. All the people you thought you could respect. I'm a very bad Christian. I went to Christian school till 5th grade. Again, it's so I don't even know
No,
why I mentioned
I
it.
am too, man. I don't get me wrong. I'm shooting to get my fingertips in purgatory. I have no I have no uh I have, yeah, no illusions about about the disposition of my soul. So
I just try to I just yeah I have the faith. I have a family who are all either Catholic or Christian or nothing. I have a pagan aunt, so it's basically the route we have gone throughout my whole life. But yeah, I haven't attended church in a while. Oftentimes on Saturday, when I'm thinking of how to plan the next day, I'll say I'm going to go to church in the morning, and I don't. I
yeah.
probably should more often try to attend a local one. The other hard thing, just like you said, a few weeks back, I was searching through churches, and in a lot of them, it's you go to the comment section, and they're either I'm so glad of what a diverse church this is, and their acceptance of my LGBTQ, and this, that, and the other thing. And it's like this, this isn't what we came to this for, and you wouldn't do this in anybody else's house of worship. Never a Muslim place would you do this. Probably not even a Buddhist place if that exists anymore. See, this is another thing. The Communist Chinese Party has taken Buddhism from the Orientals overall. You don't even hear about Buddhism. You don't see Buddha statues anywhere anymore. I digress, though. What I was saying about not being able to trust any of the celebrities and the rich folk you thought at least had our back here. No, you totally can. And then back to the Stoicism and then just the overall, the riots that were allowed to happen. I don't know to what extent it was there. I call it the COVID Floyd riots because it was both. It was the George Floyd riots fueled by the whole embodiment that COVID is happening to me right now, so I can do this. And then there was the George Floyd kind of caveat to it that we're doing this to push back against the system that has wronged us. And again, it's all in these big major cities where everybody lives for free off the government, and it makes life miserable for everybody else that's only there to work a job they don't want to work because it's the where you can get a good job. Just like me, I have to commute to San Francisco, which is hell. But I don't know where I was going with this.
Well,
Either
no,
way, though, yes, lost a lot of respect for all the higher ups.
yeah, for sure. And you know, I'm not saying that it's pushed me into like the Illuminati camp because God forbid, right? And
Well,
as a
they are
Catholic,
the Illuminati. Everyone used to say Beyonce and Jay-Z were the Illuminati, so it's like they are the Illuminati. They've become
wait,
everything they've
what?
accused us of.
What?
Yeah.
Sorry, what? But you look at it like when we were watching this, we kept our business open because we are essential, which by the way is
Nice.
fucking hilarious. Because websites have to run on time and all that. So so we're
No
essential.
storefront to get anybody sick. They can't
Yeah,
kill anybody
right,
with the COVID germs.
right. So so we were talking about this, and we have a kind of a panoply of characters over here, obviously, and everybody, it truly is more or less like a free speech zone. So you've got, libertarian and conservative and a moderate who leans conservative, and then we have, our dyed in the wool progressive, and so we would sit and have, reasonable conversations, which, by the way, you used to be able to have those. But we would have these conversations, and the thing that struck me was like, okay, look, I don't know much. I really don't. But like the reaction that I'm seeing from our government minders is not in keeping with the stimulus, meaning like the 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 uh the advent of COVID, right? And so I was okay with 2 weeks to whatever the thing or whatever. Because I want to be prudent and respectful, and my father's a man of science, and you know, but I couldn't shake this feeling that like everybody, like I went to a movie theater and I was watching it, except for there was a lady in front of me with this huge hat, and I couldn't see the full screen, and I was being asked to like I don't know, do a movie review, and I was like, I'm I can't see the whole fucking screen, so I have no idea what this review is going to be like. But this haunted me. Why this response? Why this response? And the same thing with the George Floyd stuff, and um, y- you know, I- I'll I don't really believe I believe in like providence, but I don't really believe in coincidence. So like it is very well choreographed stuff going on here. As an agency person who's worked with agencies and stuff like that, I was really impressed with how these huge ad rollouts were like these huge advertising campaigns were like you would have thought that they had them in their back pocket ready to go. Things like we're
Never even
in
thought
this
of this. Yeah.
together, things like bumper stickers and slogans and signs and all this stuff. I mean, you would have thought, hear me out.
They were working on this since 2018.
I was
Yeah,
so
you're right.
impressed. I was so impressed with that kind of turnaround from marketing agencies working with the government because I've never seen marketing agencies in the government move so quickly. I've never seen them get so much done
No.
and such a unified. I mean, it was amazing. So,
You
um,
can't get that many different types of hats and t-shirts after the Super Bowl win. There was every kind of different George Floyd and abstract art and COVID. Yeah, we're in this together. I can't breathe. Everything. You're so right. I never even thought of that. There was months and months of supply chain and back because the supply chain issues of COVID were already upon us once we needed every other sloganable shirt. So yes, you're so right. We would have been out of ink. We would have been out of silk screens. The presses for the shirts. You wouldn't have been able to go to where the factories are to silk screen the shirts because they would have been locked down from the COVID. It was such a coordinated effort. And the sad thing is too, and it's of course the R word has turned everyone to turn tail. You call it racist, you call this racist, you call that racist. I can never imagine even God forbid, yeah, whatever ever happened. Someone looked just like me, got brutally killed by the police. I can never even imagine waking up in the middle of the night and waking me up in a sweat. And say, oh, that poor guy looked like me. No one really knew him. And I only say that to say this. After everything was said and done, not even one person from his family ever went and picked up his belongings from his house. I can only imagine if a close loved one passed away, one of the first things after the body, everything else, let's go and retrieve all of their stuff. Let's go. No one even went and got his stuff. So I don't mean to be so heartless here, but he was like, he was a hardened street thug on drugs, multiple cases, on paperwork a million times over. No one really cared. It was the catalyst for everyone to explode during the concealment of COVID. Again, with this Russia-Ukraine thing, all these white people that look just like me killing each other left and right. I've never woke up once in the middle of the night. It's so sad. They look like me. They could be me. That could be my brother. No one really has these thoughts and feelings. And this is what I
well,
tell everyone. No one wakes up in the middle of the night drenched in sweat, really caring about these things they then claim to care about on social media the next day.
right. And I'll say this, it's a shame. It honestly, it's a tragedy when anyone dies. I'm not a big
Absolutely.
fan of it. And the
And the
opera,
cops that were involved, give them to them on a platter. If they could have ended the social unrest, give them to them on a platter.
but they purposefully. So I was a wee bit of a songsmith back in the day, and so you want to create this torque and tension before you hit the crescendo, right? You want to create this torque and tension, and so you can create a lot of torque and tension by, I don't know, letting the bridge get a little bit longer than perhaps the person's brain um,
Can
um,
comprehend.
anticipates that you're gonna like resolve the song, right? So this crescendo goes, it gets uncomfortable, goes, and the release is like, is uh, you hit the sweet spot. So there was a lot of yeah, why weren't the cops giving up on a platter that day, a day after, things like that, that really do, I mean, they bother me. It's a tragedy that the guy died. There's no
They burned
question. And
entire cities to the ground. They could have just gotten, they could have killed those cops
but
somehow. God
here's
forbid me saying
here's
it
the
like
thing
that.
though. Here's the thing though. If it weren't George Floyd, it would have been Bob Floyd in
It would have been anybody.
Tuscaloosa. It doesn't fucking matter. So, in my opinion, but so yeah, I'm very impressed with the ad and PR agencies. And
Never even thought of it like that. You put it great.
yeah, great rollout. So, but I think this. I think you like you said. Well, in any event, anything that occurs to kind of help me or anyone's mind get a clearer grasp of reality, objective reality, is a good thing. And I think as many people who are completely bamboozled, I mean, and completely unhinged at this point, which is very sad. There are still people who, I sound like a Gnostic here, but people who are like, okay, I think I'm seeing things a little bit more clearly because frankly, I don't believe anything any longer. Everything is an article of faith right now. People want to get on me about, my faith in God. That's fine. But like, keep in mind that like y- people are taking leaps of faith every time they listen to anything, read anything, um, consume any sort of media. There's a leap of faith that happens there. And it wasn't always like that. Now, that doesn't mean that the shenanigans weren't always going on. It's just they weren't so fucking blatant, like, and so obvious. It's like I felt a lot of times like the emperor has no clothes, and like I was the guy going like, seriously, you guys, like, don't you see like he's naked? Like the guy's fucking naked. Like, don't you see that? Like, am I losing my mind here? So but then I start, talking with people who I think are seeing clearly as well. Um, and that makes me frankly feel better. So, um, what will the next 10 years look like? So we get a couple more minutes here. What if you had to take a guess, and you're younger, so you've got a lot more, you haven't collapsed so many probabilities, right? Um, so like things are kind of still wide open and these times are very important for you and a young family and all that. So what do you see, what's your honest take for the Republic, for the United States?
It just looks like with all the mass layoffs, everybody's going to have to kind of take on a new entrepreneurship role of their own. And, you see so many people are coming to, you see everybody with the now hiring little purple circle around themselves on LinkedIn here. So, I mean, it's going to get, I would assume, worse before it gets better. It looks like, again, rates just went up again. Everything is kind of, we just got back from Costco. Things are a bit more pricey again. Nothing is really getting any better right now. It looks like they're pitching more of this COVID. I hear more and more on the news because I try to watch the liberal news as well, as much as I watch the channel 1029 America's Voice. But they're pushing the whole. It's so hot now. When COVID spread, it was because everybody was indoors together and they got it together. It's so hot right now. Everybody's indoors right now together, so everybody's going to get it again because everybody's indoors. So there, I don't know. I guess we'll probably I would assume they'll push another one of these for everyone to pretend they're afraid and masks. I see the masks coming back all the time. I try to always give them a nice Billy Idol sneer so they know that I like, what's your problem? What's your fucking deal? Like, just like my dad would always say to me, poke him in the chest. What's your fucking deal? It's just like, what's your problem? You're not sick. If you're sick, why are you here? If you think you're too good to breathe my air, go back to wherever you came from. Again, it's just such an insulting give and take because we've become such a society of pussies to where you can't just say, hey, if you've got a peanut allergy, don't come to the peanut butter and jelly sandwich fucking picnic. it's going to get worse. Then I would assume probably get better as we weed out. I don't know. Everybody always says like, oh, the all these diseases are going to kill off everybody, and it'll only be the rich and elite that can afford the whatever medicines. But now that was really just the lie for everybody to take the vaccines that then made them sick. So I guess I don't know. Probably that as the same with all markets, they'll go down, go back up, go back down, go back up. I have just been staying more at home, as the COVID years are upon us. We go out less and less. We plan what we're going to go do. We go do it, and then we come home. I'm not really, a fixture in my community. Unfortunately, I'm new to the community, but it's not really a community anybody wants to be a fixture of. Like I had said earlier, nobody really talks to each other. So more so, I would say it's going to be more so a next few years of the homesteader type, staying in, figuring out how to do things for yourself, figuring out how to fix things yourself, maybe grow a few things in the backyard yourself, go back, digress a slight bit. The AI metaverse chat GPT is not making everyone rich like they claimed it would. It is taking jobs from the bottom rung of people that were the fans of it. So, up, down, up, down, up, down. I guess I don't really have too intelligible of an answer to that.
That's okay. No, I mean, I think it's a little bit hopeful to think in terms of things being cyclical, because we are definitely we're not at the, well, we're in the trough, but and then finally, the final question is, why is humanity worth saving?
Oh, I used to think it was, back when there was more of back when I thought maybe over half of the planet was moral or moralistic in any way. I don't know. We've become a society, at least here where I am from, where the evil doers are the loudest talkers who loud talk their way into the niceties. One of my biggest complaints is that I had to move from a nice coastal town where I am from to a hotter town where I'm not from, just due to the fact that people who I deem to be beneath me, again, class, color, creed be damned, beneath me in a moral sense, in a quality member of society sense, and probably I pay more in taxes too. The fact that they've been able to squeeze their way in, I don't know that it's worth it. I more so think it's worth, I would say more. And it sounds so bad because my dad always says, "Oh, you're such an elitist now because you were broke and then you got a good job, and you're such an elitist prick that you moved out of the neighborhood." And he's kind of right, but it's like it really would just be taking away and shaming everyone again. We used to shame poor people when they had too many kids. Now we encourage it. We used to, tell the you. I grew up a fat, pimply kid, fat, pimply white kid in a Hispanic neighborhood. So no one ever had any trouble telling me what I wasn't about to get and how not nice today was about to be, and every other thing that I didn't want to hear. We've become a society that's so afraid to hear anything we don't want to hear. My God, people sue each other now. You said something I disagree with. I am suing. Hey, lawyer on retainer. And then you have a bunch of assholes that are 10 years younger than me that don't even deserve a law degree, put on a fucking suit, ambulance chasing, disrupting society, kind of going back to what you were saying earlier. And I know I'm probably all over the place here, but it was so shocking when you see people that would go so far out of their way to help the chaos. And I started thinking this when all these people were taking on these law jobs and everything just to be disruptors and agitators. Oh, I want to become an immigration lawyer. And I was like, what the fuck is that? And I was like, oh, so you can just fight and jam up our courts to bring non-English speaking people, unskilled non-English speaking people here, jam up the fucking courts, project this all altruistic, righteous sense of being, whilst in the meantime, everyone forgets all about the Romans and 300 and all this, where all these people should have stayed where they were, fought the evil, and made it better. Because this is always my argument with the whole culture built on immigrants. If all of the good and capable people always leave the bad place to come here, will the bad place ever, ever, ever get better? And it won't. So that was kind of an encapsulation again of what I was saying about society maybe not being worth saving anymore, because the biggest pieces of shit get the loudest voice and the most free handouts now.
Well, hopefully we can, hopefully there are a bunch of difficult people out there willing to step into the breach. How about that?
But it seems like it more so, again, as I kind of had to step out of my own bubble and felt I was not doing my due diligence to my fellow man, as you had said, with, being vocal enough. about these things and being just another person hiding in the shadows, afraid to talk about it. Everyone else viewing, well, man, even Robby, he's, Robby, he's 6'2" with a loud voice. He should be out here speaking for us, and I'm not. Which is the same. It's the same thing I would say to all my charismatic and influential friends of other cultural groups. I would always think, and my argument was like, you could have stood on your soapbox and told your people not to behave this way. You didn't. And so that's why I kind of felt like, well, I'm the one doing the same thing. I could use my voice to make it better for all people. Again, race, class, creed be damned, just overall from a moralistic sense. But yeah, I guess that's why I became more of the difficult personality vocally, as opposed to, you look at my LinkedIn 6 months ago, 12 months ago, it's just me. Tech company, tech is great. Hey,
I think
software.
I think you're short of this world in LinkedIn, by the way. But but we're all pulling for you. I'm gonna hop off. Let's wrap this up.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt.
You guys can find Robby Gaskins.
Common spelling.
Yeah, Gaskins. He's one of maybe 5 Gaskins in the world, and he's
I see a
in
lot of
California.
Gaskin.
Yeah,
No
this is the plural. So, all right, man.
Well, yeah.
I appreciate it a ton. I really do.
Appreciate you having me, Matt. Here, I'll as soon as this is all up, I'll share it on the LinkedIn and do what I can to get it out to the masses.
Cool. I'll let you know. Have a good one, man.
Awesome, Matt.
Thank you.
Hey, same to you.
Bye.
Talk to you soon. Later.